thing, and not just that thing, but all airborne pathogens and you know, mental and physical diseases. And after the health and wellness tip, I'll segue over into my speaking point of the day if I have one. Sometimes I have one, sometimes I do not. Um, Sometimes I'm just talking right off the cuff, but when I'm doing it, I always relate it to my overlying theme, which is the name of my podcast, The Narrative. So I'm trying to change the narrative. And by changing the narrative, I mean the way black people and black culture are being portrayed in the liberal media and in the music and, just in general. So I want us to always be portrayed in a positive light, not a negative one. And so, that's why how I always loop all my concepts when I'm have my speaking point. And just, not for nothing. And when I speak on celebrities, I do it from that perspective as well. I'm never, this isn't a gossip. I don't gossip. I don't do the dish the tea. I don't keep dirt on nobody's name. It's just like when I mention a celebrity's name or a famous person's name, it's just really to help me illustrate a point that I'm making. So it's never, from trying to denigrate anyone. But I will call, a spade a spade. If one of us does something in the eye of the public, I will say it's wrong and how is it wrong and how does that relate to us? Why do I even care about them doing it? And then I close out with final thoughts of the day, and the final thought of the day is usually just something that's on my mind. I try to leave you with something to think about, a gem, a pearl of wisdom. Just the final thought of the day, and just wrap it up. Bam, close out, plug this, the podcast. So I plug the Narrative Podcast, and then I also plug my other project or any other projects that I'm working on. Currently, I'm just plugging my poetry blog, and then I'm gonna start plugging all my other projects as I'm nearing completion. So I'm almost done with everything else that I'm working on. Should be completed by next month. It's looking like. So yeah, you'll be able to get some good stuff from me. And that's all I want to say about it. I want the proof to be in the pudding. So yeah, that's the Narrative Podcast experience in a nutshell. And like I said, today is a live feed where I want to share some articles, share some positive black news, because there's always something positive happening in our community, but for some odd reason, people always want to, share the negative stuff. They want to hyper criminalize our men and hypersexualize our women. Like right before quarantine, in my timelines, I kept on seeing Waffle House fights. Like every other day, people was posting like Waffle House fights. Sisters getting ratchet in the Airbnb, or in those 5-star hotels, twerking in the mirror and all that. So again, like I said, I don't have anything against twerking. I don't have anything, with being sensual online, but it's a time and a place for everything. It's proper context for everything. If it's art, if it's tasteful nudity, if it's like art, then you know what I'm saying, it's like abstract art, definitely. But if it's pornography, then again, context is it on your website or is it like on IG? If it's on IG, then that's a problem. If if it's on your personal website that you got to pay for, that you got to go, you know what I mean, look at, sign all the permissions and all that, then you know exactly what you're getting yourself in for. You know exactly what you're going to see. You know that's your grown adult choice then. But if it's like randomly coming up on Facebook and IG and YouTube and like we don't have a choice, then that's a problem. And it also, you know, misrepresents black women in general, imagery like that. And then, you know, the images of our brothers, you know, always showing them, you know, glorifying gang culture, drug culture, just, you know, random acts of violence, you know, the usual. But anyway, I'm going to dive right up into these articles because they're really fascinating and, you know, it'll really hold us up in a positive light, all these articles that I've compiled. So even though it's a live feed, it's like I take a couple of days when I see something in my radar, when something comes across my radar, I just jot a note. And I try to get like about 4 or 5 stories. For when I do my live, I got about at least 4 or 5 stories a share. So that's become a thing because when I first started doing my lives, I was just like off the cuff, just talking. And I don't want to just talk because then it's just a rant and I want you to, you know, pull something away. I want my content to resonate because when you're talking and talking and talking, it don't really have a point. It's just a rant. And this is a podcast, not a rant session. So, all right. Okay, first article. The article reads, Big Bag, McDonald pays $33.35 million in a racial discrimination lawsuit filed by black owner after McDonald's denied him the opportunity to buy restaurants in the white communities. And this is the story of Herb Washington, formerly of the Oakland A's. Washington was previously the fast food chain's largest black franchise owner in the country, owning 23 locations at the time of the lawsuit. During the lawsuit, it dropped to 14 locations. So the skinny of it is the settlement offer they offered Washington was to just stop being a franchise owner altogether and dismiss all of his allegations of, you know, racial discrimination for the settlement price. And the settlement price is $33.5 million, which, you know, it sounds like a lot, but if you factor in litigation, you know, it's really not nothing. If he already owns 23 locations, you know, that's really kind of not even recouping all his losses from those franchises. So the only reason why he settled out is a convenience thing. And according to the article, McDonald released this statement. They say they're confident in their defense, but they just decided to settle out just to move forward from the situation. So, you know, reading in between the lines, like they don't care. It's just like they're racist. They don't want, you know, him to have the franchises in the white community. So all my Caucasian listeners, or, you know, Caucasian people that just like always wondering why black people are always complaining about inclusion and equality, stories like this. It's like people have pulled themselves up by the bootstrap, have the money, you know, to expand, but they don't want us to expand. Other than they don't want them to have it, because, you know, like Money's green. So if you don't want that green money, that's just racism. You just don't want them to have it because they're black. Like money spins. Like so, when you get to the point you don't want money, it's not it's not business ethics. This is just racism at its finest. But yeah, so he got his settlement. He settled out with McDonald's. Everybody's moving forward. And I'm guessing he just went on and settled out because he didn't have the resource, or he felt like he, already spent too much time fighting with them. Just like, get it over with. I'm not going to fight them for them little, petty locations. He's been retired from baseball for many years now. He has like tons of other businesses and side ventures going on the side that it requires his full attention, and he didn't have time to mess around with McDonald's. So he went on and settled out. It's really unfortunate that he didn't get those franchises in that community, because that would have been more, meant more revenue for him, and he gives back to the community. He does a lot of philanthropy, does a lot for his own. So that's another reason why they didn't want to sell it to him, because they don't want black people to empower themselves. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, they ain't loving us. All right, on to the next article. Next article reads, entrepreneur Kayla Iman had her car repossessed from the parking lot of her job. 8 years later, she bought the building. And that's all the article really says. Her IG handle is @Kayla Model Maker. That's her IG handle. And basically, I did some digging on the internet, and she started her own modeling agency, her own children's modeling agency. So that was just, I couldn't really find anything about, how her car got repossessed. She got some TED Talks on YouTube, but that was just her struggling along, fulfilling her dream into becoming a model. Very pretty sister, but hey, that's just like if you want something bad, that's what's going to come with the territory. You're going to have your dark days, but if you stay on the path, you will be rewarded. And she is currently now an owner of her own modeling agency, because she didn't give up and she stayed on the path. Alrighty. So, next article. Imagine being 16 years old, going to the police station with your friends, wrongfully accused of rape, and being sentenced as an adult in prison. His name was Corey Wise! Exclamation point. So this is the story of Corey Wise. And if you're not familiar with Corey Wise, Google the Central Park 5. So essentially, it was him and like 4 other boys got accused of raping a Caucasian woman jogging in Central Park. And so, like years later, the man that actually raped the woman, the one man, it was just one guy, the rape the lady, comes forward and admits it, and all the charges were released in 2002. This story has been on The Breakfast Club. It's been on Good Morning America. They did a mini series on Netflix, and I believe it's titled The Central Park 5. Yeah. So Corey Wise, he's out of all the